Good afternoon to all the delegates. A big thank you to Team RSSDI, Dr. Bansi, and the entire organizing team for inviting, and it's always a pleasure to be here in the city of Ahmedabad. Thank you, Novartis, for this session. So we are going to discuss about, in this first session, as it is in the Gliptin Symposium, about early treatment intensification with vildagliptin and the beta cell preservation. This is the flow of the talk that I'll be going through, initially talking about the importance of standard conventional management and going on over to the early intensification, the importance of early intensification and the data that tells us that why intensification is important. Going on to a very, very important trial that we have witnessed in the last few years, a different trial called the VERIFY trial, which is giving us some insights into and telling us why starting patients with mildly detected or newly detected diabetes with a combination therapy helps over a single dose therapy. Going on to the data on beta cell function, especially from the VERIFY data. Effect on Asian population, we know that there are data which tells us that gliptins work better in Asians as compared to Caucasians, and some data from the latest data from the Indian subset of the VERIFY study. So we know that diabetes is a progressive disease. Number of people with diabetes are increasing world over. More than 450 to 500 million diabetics are already there. A gradual deterioration in the beta cell function keeps happening from the time we get detected with diabetes. We also know that. And the important is to arrest this beta cell function deterioration by the better glycemic control. If you look at the various theories that have been coming from the ADA-ESD consensus report also, initially they were talking about only starting a monotherapy with metformin after diet and exercise, waiting for a few months, subsequent escalation to a combination or adding a second drug. Gradually, if you see, the guidelines are changing. If you see the 2019 update also, it mentions that providers should engage in shared decision making around initial combination therapy in new onset cases of diabetes. Further to certain new evidences, in 2020 ADA and Medical Standard of Medical Care mentioned that early combination therapy can be considered in some patients at treatment initiation to extend the time to treatment failure. So let us understand why it is important for early intensification. There is enough data which tells us that the earlier you treat the patients better, intensively you manage them better, you can preserve the beta cells better. There have been theories, if you look at the data from UKPDS also, where there were subsets of population, patients were given only monotherapies of diet, preserve the beta cell function, have therefore improved or shown a better durability. The only data that we have for early intensification is when patients have received early insulin therapy in the first 2 years of their duration of diabetes, and they've been able to go into remission for a period of almost 2 years. So again, it tells us that achieve the glycemic control as early as possible. We know, and you have seen this graph many times, these slides, what was happening earlier, where we used to add one therapy after another, wait for 3 months for the patients to get a better glycemic control, then I'd go on to a second drug or a titration of the third drug, and then subsequently patient used to go on insulin after multiple doses of oral drugs after a considerable amount of time. But what was happening is that for a considerable amount of time, patients used to remain at a higher glycemic value, patient used to remain at a higher HbA1c, and therefore the chances of complications were always more. And when we add subsequent addition of drugs more and more, we can achieve the glycemic control better. The data from UKPDS long-term study also clearly tells us that you achieve the glycemic control early, and that is important. If you see the legacy effect that UKPDS showed, Though the initial study did not show major benefit in macrovascular arm, if you look at the data from 10 years after follow-up or 10 years later on, it clearly showed that the difference in A1C was lost after the first 2 years, but still there was a 24% reduction in microvascular complications, a 15% reduction in infarction, and a 15% reduction almost in all-cause mortality. So it tells us that there is something called good glycemic legacy, which we need to attain in the first few years of a patient's duration of diabetes. This is another important study again, which looked at the likelihood of achieving a better glycemic control and how important or what it gives us in terms of if you achieve a glycemic control early. There was a huge database in this study, UK database, that was seen here. And what it tried to see was that for those patients which were intensified treatment with after they were on sulfonylurea or on metformin, and when they were intensified with 2 or 3 drugs, there were 3 group of patients here. The early intensification was within 20 months, the intermediate intensification was after 24 months, and the late intensification group was after 25 months. And what it showed was that the likelihood of attaining glycemic control was almost 22% and 28% lower for the patients in the intermediate and late intensification group, thereby telling us that, again, early intensification is the need of the hour. The clinical course, of course, of type 2 diabetes is progressive. As I told you, there is a deterioration of beta cell, and the traditional sequential approach, which therefore results in a recurrent failure over a period of time, and therefore early therapy is the need of the hour. Now, there is a close correlation between the kind of therapies we use also and the beta cell functions. There are the various factors which play a role in beta cell deterioration. It could be hyperglycemia or the glucotoxicity, the lipotoxicity, the amyloid deposition, the autoimmunity, the incretin effect, the inflammation that is happening. All these, if you see at the inner circle, if you see, are the factors which are responsible for a deteriorating beta cell function. And the outer circle in the slide clearly tells us that there are various drugs which are working on each risk factor there. That could be the insulin, the incretins, the SUs, and metformin, which work primarily on the hyperglycemia. The thiazolidinediones, the insulin and metformin, working mainly on the inflammation aspect. If you look at the data from in the past from ADOPT and the ACT NOW study also, glitazones have clearly shown that they can help overall in prevention of beta cell function. And there are drugs with like incretins which have shown promising effects. There are drugs like GLP-1 analogs which have shown that deterioration in beta cell can be arrested. And we have DPP-4 inhibitors like vildagliptin, linagliptin, and other drugs also which have shown an improvement per se in the deterioration of beta cell function. So let us come to this important study, a different study which has come up in the last few years. Difference is because if we have seen number of studies, the cardiovascular studies that we have been seeing in the last 10 years, these are studies which have been seen in patients with which are more at risk. They are patients at a high cardiovascular risk. The duration of diabetes in the oldest in these studies were almost more than 8 to 10 years old. But VERIFY is a study which has been done in patients which are newly diagnosed with diabetes. More of the kind of patients which we see in our clinical practice on day-to-day basis, which come to our OPD early. They were patients with lesser duration of diabetes. They were patients with lesser glycemic exertion. That means the HbA1c baseline was almost between 6.5 to 7.5 in this VERIFY study. And therefore, it was a study which is different from the other studies. It's a multinational, multi-ethnic study done over 34 countries from 254 centers and had almost 2,000 population done across various countries. India was also one of the center for the study. It's a randomized, double-blind, 2-arm parallel group study consisting of a screening visit initially. There was a 3-week run-in period which was done where patients were put on metformin. And then the primary aim was to look at the primary failure threshold. It was a study which is conducted over a 5-year treatment period in which patients were intensified continuously in order to achieve the desired glycemic effect. Mainly the aim of this study was to assess the long-term clinical benefits of early treatment intensification with a combination of vildagliptin and metformin compared to patients who were given only metformin. Therefore, we are trying to see that if patients who are newly diagnosed with diabetes, whose glycemic is not very bad or the HbA1c is not very high, if you subject them to 2 drugs in the very initial phase of their treatment, whether they do better as compared to giving one single drug like metformin. two groups of population divided into different periods. The period 1 was where patients received metformin plus vildagliptin combination as one group, and the other group received metformin and placebo. They were given this, and the primary they were looked at to look at the HbA1c level. The time to treatment failure was assessed, and if there were two consecutive patient results of HbA1c more than 7 separated over 13 weeks apart, that means they were considered to be a failure to the therapy. In the second period, all the patients who were on metformin plus placebo were then given metformin and vildagliptin, those who could not achieve the A1C of less than 7. So that means in the period 2, all the patients were on combinations of metformin and vildagliptin in both the ways. If the patient still could not achieve the A1C of less than 7, then they were shifted to period 3, where they were given further intensification with insulin, but their data was not considered in the final analysis. If you look at the baseline characteristics globally, more or less similar across all countries. If you see the characteristics of Southeast Asians and East Asians, mean A1C was around again 6 to 7 here in that, and in South Asia also it was 6.9 to 7.2. The mean age was around 40 to 45 years. The primary endpoint here was to look at time to initial treatment failure. If you look at the data, there was in the combination group of vilda and metformin, clearly the duration was extended beyond the end of the study as compared to monotherapy group of metformin. That means the patients in the monotherapy group were able to sustain the glycemic control up to a period of 33 to 36 months, but in the combination group, it went beyond the end of the study period. That means up to more than 5 years, the patients were able to maintain an A1C of less than 7 in the combination group. So there was a clear improvement or clear benefit that was seen in the combination arm as compared to the single metformin arm. The time to secondary treatment failure was also one of the endpoints for the study. That means those patients who were in the period 2, which were given the combination at the later stage, when they were assessed, there was almost a 26% lesser incidence again in the combination arm. That means even though they were subjected to combination late, still they achieved a better glycemic control. The duration was better again for a significant period and lesser as compared to the monotherapy arm. If you look at the sequential HbA1c throughout the study, the combination group of vilda and metformin could achieve the A1C or consistently maintain the A1C of less than 7 for a much longer period of time as compared to the single metformin and placebo group. So what does it tell us? The early combination therapy definitely reduced the risk of time to initial treatment failure versus monotherapy strategy by almost 50%. The median time to failure was almost 3 years in the initial monotherapy group as compared to the over 5 years in the combination group. When all patients were receiving combination therapy, the risk of time to secondary failure reduced by almost 26%, and both approaches were safe and well tolerated per se. Let us look at the data from the beta cell function of how vildagliptin helped per se to improve the beta cell function. The changes in beta cell functions were mainly assessed by the HOMA model here again from baseline to confirm initial treatment failure. 2001 patients, as we know, were there in the study. Out of this, 676 patients were assessed for beta cell function in the monotherapy group and 747 in the combination group. Clearly, again, it showed that there was a difference in both the arms. The changes in HOMA beta from baseline to confirm initial treatment failure in the combination group was much better, 17.2 as compared to the monotherapy group. The mean difference in the adjusted change between the combination and monotherapy was almost significant as 19.23. So clearly telling us that the beta cell preservation was seen in the vilda plus metformin arm when they were treated early. This is a very latest data from which was presented in 2021 ADA this year in July. It is a data from the VERIFY study only, where they looked at the postprandial insulin secretion in the VERIFY study. Certain subjects of patients were subjected to oral glucose tolerance test, and they were assessed for the postprandial insulin levels, and the ratio of or the change in area under curve for insulin secretion rate versus glucose ratio was detected from or assessed. What it showed again that in the combination group, the ratio was much better. That means the beta cell preservation even postprandially was seen to be better in the vilda plus metformin arm significantly as compared to the monotherapy arm. So the early combination treatment with vilda and metformin in patients with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes showed a considerable improvement in beta cell function compared with metformin monotherapy, and this is consistent with the improved glycemic control and durable HbA1c as seen in the VERIFY study. quick recap of the Indian data from the VERIFY study. We know that we Indians are different from Caucasians. We are different in many ways. We have more insulin resistance, more adiposity, lesser adiponectin levels, high CRPs, more leptin, and that's why we are more insulin resistant from the very beginning. But also what we know is that we are more beta cell deficient. And therefore we need specific different kind of therapy from the very beginning as compared to Caucasians. This is a data which is a meta-analysis done by Dr. A.K. Singh. It looked at the effect of incretin-based therapies in Asians versus non-Asians. Various studies were assessed in this meta-analysis. Two important studies done by Park et al. And Kim YG et al. Clearly showed that in Asians, the reduction in HbA1c was considerably more, 1.67 versus 0.65, and in the other study also 0.92 versus 0.65. So telling us that the DPP-4s worked better in Asians as compared to non-Asian population. This is another meta-analysis which looked at studies where there were more than 50% of the populations as Asians. It looked at glucose lowering efficacy of various drugs, compared DPP-4, SGLT2s and GLP-1s, and clearly, and it again showed that DPP-4s and SGLT2 worked better in Asian population as compared to the non-Asian population, though there was no difference seen here in terms of ethnicity for the GLP analogs. In the Indian subset analysis from the VERIFY trial, as I told you, there were considerable amount of population from India also. Almost 47% were Indians from the total Asian population that participated in the trial. More or less, the baseline characteristics from India were more or less similar as globally that was seen here. Not much change. The baseline A1C was 6.8. Again, the early combination therapy significantly reduced the time to treatment failure by 53% in the Indian subgroup as compared to the other group. If you look at the time to secondary treatment failure, 50% patients failed in the metformin monotherapy at 1.5 years versus 4.75 years for the early combination group here in the Indian subset. The secondary treatment failure was reduced by almost 58% versus the initial monotherapy. So the relative risk to time to treatment failure was lesser in the combination arm, definitely as compared to monotherapy. If you look at the A1C control in Indian subset of population, again a consistent lowering of HbA1c throughout the study from baseline to the end of the study up to almost up to 60 months. Consistently the Indian group showed a lesser HbA1c as compared to the monotherapy group. So the key findings from the Indian subgroup is that early combination therapy again reduced the incidence or time to treatment failure by almost 50%. The median time to initial treatment failure was 1.5 years in the monotherapy group versus more than 5 years in the combination group almost. Both treatment approaches were well tolerated and no major side effects were seen. And when all patients were receiving combination, the risk of time to treatment failure reduced by almost 58%. So to conclude, what are the implications of this study? The strategy of early combination therapy approach with a Vilda plus metformin consistently improves the long-term glycemic durability is what we know. The results of Indian subset analysis also indicate that in Indian subset of newly diagnosed patients, the long-term clinical benefits can be achieved better and more frequently without any tolerability issues. If you look at the comparison between monotherapy and combination therapy, clearly it tells us that the advantages are more when you use two drugs. They work on more pathogenic factors. We use lesser doses when we use two drugs as compared to larger dose of one drug. The durability is seen much more longer. We can address more pathogenic factors. We have better effects seen. The cons, if you see, were very, very less. The adherence may be less. Patients may feel that they are taking more medicines. More monitoring may be required. Sometimes the cost may go up. But overall, in the long term, the advantages are more. We have lesser risk of hospitalization and lesser complications. If you compare the Indian and the subset of patients and the benefits that we see, clearly, vildagliptin has been found to be more effective in better glycemic control, especially in the Indian subset and the Asian population. The combination of Vilda and metformin is more or less weight neutral. The combination therapy shows durability in long-term glycemic effect, and combination therapy has lower risk of CV events, what we know now. So the take-home message is beta cell deficiency needs to be treated early. It is more common in Asians as compared to Caucasians. The incretin-based therapies have shown an increase of HOMA-beta and fasting C-peptide levels and also achieves a reduction of HOMA-IR and fasting PP versus placebo. DPP inhibitors have shown a protective effect on the beta cell function. Addition of Vilda to metformin more or less improves the glycemic control and beta cell function. verified showed us that beta cell function, if treated early, can be improved with this combination of vildagliptin and metformin. And when started on metformin monotherapy, Indian patients tend to fail after 1.5 years versus a combination therapy where they could maintain for the control for more than 4.5 years. Thank you very much.